Good evening. Don't you just love a spooky, ghosty story? Isn't it really cool when these stories can be placed in history, giving them a real air of truth? Isn't it lovely how people will show a great amount of interest in these tales and go out of their way to tell, retell, promote, and report these stories like they were fact? Well, tonight I would like to peruse a saga of true horror, death, dismemberment, and ghost children in the macabre anecdote known as the Ghost Tracks. Now, there have been many articles, news stories, and TV shows that mentioned this little tidbit of terror, and I think one of my personal favorites comes from the show Ghost Stories, hosted by Patrick McNee. Let's tune in and have a look.
The skeptic in most of us thinks seeing is believing. Well, in our next story, we investigate an amazing tale of young children whose spirits seem to remain here as guardian angels, and whose fingerprints are often left on their handiwork. A sign from beyond.
More often than not, ghost stories are frightening, but even more frightening when the story is true. Let's go back to the south side of San Antonio. Behind this discovery was the tragic tale of innocent children, and even more so, their remaining spirits. Okay, so Roy, where are we?
We're out on the southern part of San Antonio on Mission Road.
Now, this is the famous road, right?
This is the famous road where the children were killed in the bus accident back in the 40s.
It was a cold but clear afternoon when a school bus was making its last delivery of school children. About 10 children were still on the bus. The bus had to cross the railroad tracks. There was no warning of the oncoming train.
The bus stalled on the track and the train come along, and before the kids could get off, it hit the school bus and killed all the kids.
This disastrous accident started a legend that motivated many people to come to these tracks.
In these places here, you can stop your car, completely stop it, turn the motor off, and leave it in neutral, and it will pick up speed all the way till it gets across the railroad track.
The strange thing about this is that the road doesn't go downhill. It doesn't even run level.
If you look to the railroad track, it appears that the road is elevated.
There's no question. I mean, I can see a hill going up. Okay, how do these cars get up the hill by themselves?
If people's cars stall or something, these children supposedly pushes the car across the track to safety.
It's come through the safety zone.
And once they're safe of the railroad track, then the car stops.
Skeptics say the explanation may be a magnetic field in the area. But how do they explain what happens next? Fingerprints on the back of the cars, as if some imaginary hands pushed it forward. Putting powder on the back of the car helps to see the fingerprints clearly. This is about where they say they stop. Turn the car off. Put it in neutral. Take my foot off the brake. And just sit here and start going. And it's beginning to pick up speed. This is amazing. No hands, no feet. This car is just going on its own. Across the railroad track, I'm going to have to brake because now we're going to go downhill. There was no doubt in my mind the car was pushed over those tracks. Was it gravity, or was it the legendary little spirits? There was only one way to find out, and there it was. I could feel my heart beating. Possible finger marks right here. Although we weren't able to find anyone to verify every detail of this story, one fact does remain. There hasn't been a single train accident on this set of tracks since the children's tragedy in the 1940s. Somehow every stalled car has managed to cross the tracks, reaching the other side in safety.
Oh, wow. Now that is some scary shit. Yes, indeed. And I bet you think you know what I'm going to say next. To go back to the origin of the story, right? Well, yes. But first I would like to get this business of the tiny fingerprints out of the way. As any respectable police detective or trained CSI tech can tell you, latent fingerprints are left behind at crime scenes anytime someone touches just about anything with their oily, filthy, disgusting hands. Prints can be lifted with a fine powder and some clear tape. Well, guess what? The same goes for the back of someone's car. Open or close your trunk lid and then sprinkle a fine dusting of powder, and in no time at all the oils will soak into the powder, showing the prints. End of story. Another thing, if you look up YouTubios on this topic, you are sure to be bombarded with video after video after video of people stopping their cars and doing the roll test and then saying something real deep like, "It looks up and hill to me." And you never see anyone pull out a carpenter's level to check or pour a bottle of water on the road to see if these helpful ghost children will push the water uphill so the bad train doesn't hit it. Well, we really don't need to do that, since the roads department already reported that this stretch has a 2-degree gradient downhill towards the tracks. Yep, and this is more than enough to cause a car to roll. Some YouTubers get downright nasty if you tell them the car is rolling downhill. It's as if they never heard the term optical illusion before. Now here's one where the stairs never stop. Most of you may remember seeing that one in the 3rd grade. But getting back on track, you may all be surprised to know that there really was a horrific accident between a school bus and a train that made headlines all throughout the western states for many weeks. True story. I actually came up with a few articles. One thing, though, it didn't happen in the 1940s. It happened December 1st, 1938. An easy thing to check, by the way. Now, part of this story reads as follows. The northbound bus turned east and halted for the tracks, and then jerked into the path of the oncoming train. Apparently, neither the driver nor the engineer was aware of the impending danger until the moment of impact. Fragments of bodies, crushed band instruments, bits of clothing, and the twisted pieces of the demolished vehicle were hurled over the snow-covered landscape as the speeding train plunged into the bus's side. 21 children were killed outright, and 17 were injured. The bus was split in two, and portions of it carried 2,000 feet down the track. Acetylene torches were used to free the bus and extricate the bodies. Now, this is a grisly tale, to be sure, and it is no wonder that people would remember this. The interesting thing is that this was the only bus versus train accident anywhere prior to the Greeley, Colorado accident in 1961. But there are some small differences between the legend and the actual story. First of all, the victims were teens, not small children. 21 teens had died in the accident, not 10. There was heavy fog and snow, not clear and cool. It happened in 1938, not in the 1940s. And the real accident wasn't exactly at the ghost tracks. That's right, and it was nowhere near San Antonio either. In fact, it wasn't even in the same state. It happened near the town of Midvale, Utah. Now, the part that I find really interesting is that the old guy with the cowboy hat relating this story to the co-host in the show was a Texas Ranger. A Texas Ranger. It's good to see that the fine folks in Texas aren't needlessly wasting their money on basic investigative techniques for law enforcement.